So we're moving on to the man.
Yeah. It gets tempting to go on and on about the defectiveness of the boy, but,
because it's bottomless.
Of the wounded boy, but we have to move on at some point to talking about the man, and the way that we like to. I mean, it's a lot easier to talk about the defects of the boy than to hold up, what is a man? What is a good model of a man? That's a little bit more difficult. But one of the things that Richard and I have come to as we've been talking about this is a symbol that we really like, which is the oak tree, the old oak tree. And we think of this as the legacy of Grandfather Oak. And it's a grandfather oak because it's an old, mature oak, one that has spread many acorns around, that have sprouted new trees, that have sprouted their own acorns. It's a tree that has burrowed its roots deep into the ground, providing a stability that's rare in our world, and whose gnarled and knobby branches go up into the heavens and almost down to the ground so that they can embrace beauty and protect the feathered ones. And these are arms that never stop blessing. And the ancient Celts revered the oaks. They saw in the oaks a constancy, a purity. They saw in their attraction for lightning a life force, and they saw in the oaks nobility, and they revered the oaks. And so you could see why they held their most sacred ceremonies in oak groves. And there are many cultures in different times and different places that have revered the oak tree, and we think of it as a good, solid symbol of mature masculinity. And we've both revered oaks through our lives, and Richard has also done that a lot and has a poem about his reverence for the oaks he's going to share.
Many, many images of oaks have been coming up in Tom's psyche and my psyche, and so we started to talk about it and noticing that the oak just kept showing up, uninvited, it just kept showing up. So I want to reference a time probably 10, 15 years ago. Zaka Lake, a lot of people have gone to Zaka Lake. I spent about a week out there, and I was just overtaken on this one misting morning on the back side. There's about 50 giant oaks, and they felt like grandfathers to me. And I went to each one as a shrine and knelt and prayed and really felt that connection to my ancestors and to this wisdom and to something I didn't really know how to name. And so this is what came through. It's called the Field of Grandfathers. Today is the greatest of all days. I have never been so happy. Heavy misting rain descends like music. Laughing, the fading, dusky light reflects the sapphire lake. Why such happiness? Why such happiness? Nothing much happened today. A simple fire at dawn, and 6 poems later, I could die like this. I have spoken to no one, no human that is. There has been no one pleading for repair, no one to worry about, no one to save, just me, 2 fat wild turkeys, and 3 petulant geese that followed me into the oak forest. There, right in front of me, on the misting lap of the mountain, like nothing I've ever seen. Today, like no other day, I bow and bow again and again as tears become rain. I bow to each and every one of them. Beyond old, curly, mossy, fur, yellow and green, lichen and mistletoe fossiled into gnarled, twisting arms, I gently reach up and kiss the knobby hand of the proudest grandfather of them all. He has more elbows than I have reasons to be here. What can a foolish man do in a field of so many grandfathers but bow and weep and pray that one day, I may learn to grow roots like that. And those arms, I want arms like that. Arms that hold up the sky, arms that embrace beauty, arms that protect the feathered ones, arms that bless and bless and bless a simple man in a field full of grandfathers.
So we can begin from thinking about Grandfather Oak to talk about what it means to be a mature man. And one of the things that first comes to my mind is patience. Think how much patience it takes for that oak tree to grow into what it is.
Yeah.
Years and years, decades. And James Hillman said, "In your patience is your soul." And so patience is one of the things that we have to grow into, we have to develop. We're not born with patience. And it's something that we see as a sign of maturity and something that's desirable in a man. There's a poet, Mark Nepo, who wrote in his book that Richard has brought to me recently and shared with me that I really like. He says, "Patience, the art of waiting, is the heart skill that opens the world."
One more time.
Patience, the art of waiting, is the heart skill that opens the world.
The heart skill that opens the world.
So think of that, how much patience can do. Patience with younger people, patience with work, patience with things not going the way that you want them to go, and to keep your eyes steady on a vision that you're trying to live in your life.
This might be the biggest difference we see with boys and a real genuine man is no patience. And there's almost a way that we celebrate that, or kind of say, well, I don't have any patience. Kind of like, don't expect me to. It's like, really? Well, an ordeal is coming, my friend.
Another quality that we think of in a man is being able to bear suffering in a dignified way.
Yes.
And if you go back to the oak tree, just think what oak trees have to go through out there: storms and wind and drought and all kinds of weather. They are somehow able to maintain their noble stature and able to weather those kinds of storms and variations in their surroundings.
So Tom and I like to distinguish between the man that becomes in the initiation versus the one that is actually ready, is an initiate, but he's not initiated yet. And the initiate, the qualities that he needs to have are, we don't expect him to be patient, but we expect a willingness to enter the ordeal. That might be one of the biggest ones, a willingness, not an ability. He doesn't have the ability yet, but a willingness to enter the ordeal. The next one is what Tom just said, a willingness to be with suffering. Jung distinguishes suffering as legitimate and illegitimate. He even says that neurosis is the avoidance of legitimate suffering. Hear that? Neurosis is the avoidance of legitimate suffering. So the only way the boy can become a man, or the girl become a woman, is to consciously, or maybe even unconsciously, but have a willingness to endure legitimate suffering and drink the tears of the world. Another quality is a willingness to love and be loved, to bring affection into our lives, into our families. So these are just a few of the qualities. Did I leave anything out there?
Well, another one is being accountable.
Yes.
Taking healthy responsibility for one's actions. And this is something that we feel is very important. And it's also something to grow into. It's not something that we're necessarily born wanting to do or able to do. And it's a lifelong task to move into responsibility and to be able to take responsibility for the things that are in front of us.
So, as a man becomes initiated, what does he look like? This question comes up for us all the time. What does a real genuine man look like? And one of the things that keeps coming up that Tom and I keep noticing is he's a man that protects and blesses what is sacred. Protects and blesses what is sacred. And that is the family, the village, the community, the natural world, the cosmos, and his own soul. So there's 5 soul bodies right there. Did you hear that? Family, the clan, the village, which we don't really have. We're trying to call it back in all the time. The natural world, the cosmos, and his very own soul. Now, if those are 5 soul bodies, how's he ever going to be alone? And we hear how alone the boy is. So a more mature, initiated man has a relationship with all these selves. Okay? He has a sense of embodiment. There's a Machado poem, Antonio Machado, and he says, "What have you done with the garden that was entrusted to you?" And that question is meant for all of us. But the boy doesn't have any answer for that. But the man, what have I done with the garden? The garden is your soul life. That's the way I take it. What have you done with the garden that was entrusted to you? And the man would have answers for that. He'd say, I protect and bless my family. I protect and bless my community, the natural world. Okay? So these are some qualities of what it looks like to be an initiated man.